What if I told you that your chronic lower back pain, or maybe your constantly empty bank account, and even that, you know, lingering heavy feeling of loneliness aren't actually physical problems at all?
Right, like there's something else entirely.
Exactly. What if they are literally just math errors, like bad code running in the background of your reality?
It completely reframes how we look at suffering. I mean, you stop looking at the symptoms and you really start looking at the source code.
And that is exactly the paradigm shift we are unpacking today.
Oh,
We are taking a deep dive into a text that attempts to map out that exact source code.
it's a wild ride for sure.
Oh, it really is. We're looking at a book by Christian Defer. He also publishes under the rather mysterious moniker Solomon XV.
Yeah, quite the pen name.
Right. The text is called The Philosopher's Stone, a practical manual of ezoPhysics. And let me be clear right out of the gate here, this is not a collection of vague, feel-good spiritual affirmations.
No, not at all. It is highly detailed.
Incredibly systematic. The author is attempting to merge the hard mathematical framework of quantum mechanics with esoteric spirituality. I mean, he's basically offering a literal manual for reality hacking.
And, the word manual is really operative there. It's presented as a literal toolkit.
Yeah, it's not just theory.
Right, it's a protocol for daily application. You're
Yeah.
supposed to actually do this stuff.
Now, before we get into the weeds of how to rewrite your reality, I want to make our stance here crystal clear to you, the listener.
Always a good idea with this kind of material.
Exactly. The goal of this deep dive is to impartially explore the highly unique ideas, the protocols, and the claims contained within this original source material.
We are definitely not endorsing these concepts as proven, peer-reviewed scientific facts.
No, we aren't. And we aren't taking sides on the esoteric or spiritual claims the author makes either.
We're just the guides today.
That's it. We are putting on our explorer hats to help you understand the fascinating architecture of the author's worldview. We are just mapping the territory he has laid out.
And I have to say, it is a vast territory. I mean, he takes concepts straight out of the standard model of physics and bridges them with ancient traditions.
It's intense, but he creates a structure that is rigorously internally consistent, whether you buy into the premise or not.
Yeah, the internal logic is really tight.
Because the manual was so comprehensive, we're going to focus our lens today on two of its most practical applications.
The stuff you can actually use.
Exactly. First, we're going to look at a technique he calls the 3A method, which is essentially a mathematical shortcut for rapid problem solving.
That part is fascinating.
It really is. And
Right.
second, we're going to spend a lot of time on the cognitive prosthesis.
Which is framed as this revolutionary protocol for daily mental hygiene.
Right, we're going to get into the exact mechanics, the step-by-step physical actions you're supposed to take. But we can't build a house without pouring the foundation first.
Gotta lay the groundwork.
So what exactly is ezoPhysics? Like, what map of reality are we operating in here?
Well, to really grasp ezoPhysics, you have to fundamentally shift how you view the universe.
Okay, wait on me.
The author proposes that reality is not just a single monolithic construct. It is split into two distinct yet intimately connected levels.
They interact, right?
Yeah, they interpenetrate each other constantly. He calls them the measurable level and the spiritual level.
The measurable level sounds, fairly self-explanatory. That's the stuff I can drop on my toe.
Precisely. The measurable level is the world of matter. It is the reality where Sir Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein are the undisputed kings.
The physical stuff.
Right. It contains mass, volume, the arrow of time moving strictly forward, and solid, undeniable facts.
If I can photograph it or weigh it, it's there.
Exactly. Put it in a test tube, it exists on the measurable level. But here is the crucial terminology the author uses. He calls this the collapsed level.
Okay, let's unpack that, because collapsed is a very specific word in quantum physics.
Okay.
We're talking about wave function collapse, right?
Yes, exactly that.
Like where a quantum system exists in a state of all possible outcomes, a superposition, until it is observed or interacts with the environment.
Right. And at that point, it collapses into one single definite physical reality.
So the author is borrowing that directly from standard physics.
Yes. In standard quantum mechanics, the Schrödinger equation describes how a quantum state changes over time. It gives you the probabilities of where a particle might be.
But it's just probabilities until you look at it.
Right. Once you measure it, that wave of probability collapses into a single point of data, a fact.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
So the author of our text takes that principle and scales it up to macro reality. He argues that the entire measurable level, the chair you are sitting in, the traffic jam you were in this morning, the balance in your checking account,
Right, my checking account.
Yeah, all of it. He says it is just the sum total of collapsed wave functions.
Okay, so if the physical world is just the collapsed result, where do the actual wave functions live before they collapse? I mean, where is the code running?
They reside on the spiritual level.
Yeah.
The author also refers to this as the immeasurable level. This is the realm of pure potentiality. Things do not exist as solid objects here.
So no chairs or traffic jams.
Right. They exist as superpositions of possibilities. The Schrödinger equation applies here in its purest, most untethered form.
That's a wild way to think about spirituality.
It is, and this leads to the core thesis of the entire book. The spiritual level is the realm of source causes. The measurable level is strictly the realm of effects.
Wait, so the physical world is just a shadow?
Essentially, yes.
If everything that happens here is just a collapsed result of a wave function configured down there, then trying to fix a problem in the physical world is basically like trying to alter a movie by drawing on the theater screen with a Sharpie.
That is exactly the author's argument. That's a great analogy.
Because the screen isn't generating the image, the projector is.
Right. If you only manipulate the measurable level, you're fighting the symptoms, not the disease. The text uses a very grounded example to illustrate this.
Let's hear it.
Let's say you wake up with a terrible toothache.
Ugh. Okay, my jaw is throbbing. I'm miserable. I go to the dentist.
Naturally, on the measurable level, the situation is entirely straightforward. You have a cavity, an exposed nerve.
Right, a physical problem with a physical fix.
Exactly. The solution is physical intervention, a dentist, a drill, a composite filling. The dentist repairs the collapsed effect.
But the author says that's not the whole story.
Right. The ezophysicist looks at this scenario and asks, what was the source cause?
The source cause on the spiritual level.
Yes. On the spiritual level, the wave function that collapsed into that specific cavity might have been configured by months of severe, unmanaged stress.
Oh, like stress that caused you to grind your teeth unconsciously every night.
Precisely.
So the dentist fixed the tooth, which is obviously necessary. But if I don't address the stress on the spiritual level, that underlying wave function is still out there.
It's loaded and ready.
Yeah, it'll just collapse into a new physical problem next month, a different tooth. Or an ulcer. Or a migraine. Exactly. And the author is very careful not to sound anti-science here, which is an important distinction.
Oh, definitely.
He explicitly states that one level does not exclude the other. You don't try to cure a broken arm by sitting in a circle and chanting.
Right. You go to an orthopedic surgeon and get a cast. Please get a cast.
Please do. But if you have an unexamined psychological pattern of self-sabotage that constantly puts you in reckless, dangerous situations, the surgeon cannot fix that.
The surgeon handles the measurable level.
Right. You have to handle the spiritual level.
Let's look at another example he gives, because physical injury is one thing, but he applies this to emotional states too.
Yes, he does.
He talks about loneliness. And loneliness is a fascinating one because it feels so completely tangible when you're trapped in it.
It really does. On the measurable level, loneliness looks like a set of hard facts. An empty apartment. A silent smartphone.
A Friday night spent watching television alone.
Exactly. But on the spiritual level, the author defines loneliness as a state function-like, a wave function of relationships.
And what's happening to that function?
Its potential is failing to collapse into the reality of connection.
And why is it failing? Like, what's the bug in the code?
Well, the source cause might be an old, deeply unhealed fear of rejection or a subconscious belief that you are unworthy of love.
So that fear is what actually configures the wave function.
Yes.
And if I only try to solve that on the measurable level, I'm just playing whack-a-mole with symptoms.
Pretty much.
I mean, I might join 5 different dating apps. I might move to a bustling new city, force myself to go to crowded bars every weekend.
Doing all the physical stuff.
Right. But if that underlying wave function is still coded with the fear of rejection, I'll just end up feeling intensely lonely in the middle of a crowded room.
Because you haven't changed the source cause?
I've only changed the physical scenery for the effect.
Yeah.
It's like fighting a fever by taking an ice pack and holding it tightly against the thermometer.
That is a very apt way to frame it.
It's just manipulating the readout.
Right. To take that analogy further, if you put the ice pack on the thermometer, you might get the mercury to drop to 98.6.
And you look at the physical readout and say, problem solved.
Exactly. But the actual infection in the body is still raging. You haven't touched the bacteria. You've only manipulated the measuring device.
Which, raises a rather terrifying diagnostic question about how we live today.
Oh, absolutely.
If we zoom out, what if our entire modern society is fundamentally obsessed with fixing thermometers while completely ignoring the actual infections.
It's a sobering thought.
We throw money at economic anxiety, we invent new apps to cure isolation, we prescribe pills for every single manifestation of stress.
We are just endlessly rearranging the furniture on the measurable level.
Yeah, and if the author's premise holds, then we are trapped on a treadmill.
Because the source causes reside entirely in the realm of uncollapsed wave functions, right? No amount of physical manipulation will ever provide a permanent cure.
The problems will just constantly respawn in new mutated forms.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the map of reality. It's an elegant, if slightly intimidating theory, but practically speaking, what on earth do you or I do with that?
Well, this is where the manual comes in.
Right, because if my real tangible problems, my debts, my backaches, my relationship conflicts, are just collapsed wave functions from a deeper spiritual level, how do I reach down into that level to fix them?
You have to interact with the code.
But by his own definition, the spiritual level is immeasurable. I can't put my hands on it. So how do I change the source code?
That brings us out of the theoretical map and into the practical toolkit.
Okay, good.
The author provides a suite of techniques he calls quantum mental tools, or QMT. And the foundational mechanism for all of them, the mother of the entire system, is what he calls the universal philosopher's stone.
The universal philosopher's stone. All right, no more theory. Let's get into the mechanics.
Let's do it.
The text claims this tool relies heavily on the principle of quantum entanglement to solve real-world problems. For the listener who might be a bit fuzzy on their advanced physics, how exactly does entanglement work in this context?
Sure. In standard physics, quantum entanglement is a phenomenon where two or more particles become linked in such a way that the quantum state of one particle cannot be described independently of the state of the others.
So they're paired up, basically.
Right. If you measure one, you instantly know the state of the other, even if they are light years apart.
Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance, didn't he?
He did, and he was somewhat skeptical of it. But in ezoPhysics, the author applies this principle not just to subatomic particles, but to wave functions.
Specifically, the state functions of human problems and solutions.
Yes. So instead of entangling two electrons, we're entangling a problem with a solution.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that practically work?
Here's the mechanical breakdown. You take a real specific problem from your life on the measurable level. Let's call it problem A.
Okay, problem A.
Because it represents a deficit, a lack, or a source of suffering, you assign it a negative mathematical value. It becomes minus A.
Got it. Negative A.
Then you take an ideal solution to that exact problem. You assign it a positive value plus A. You then use your mental focus to entangle these two functions.
Minus A gets linked to plus A. And then what? Do they explode? I mean, matter and antimatter annihilate each other.
No, they don't explode. They seek equilibrium.
Equilibrium, okay.
The author uses a very grounded fluid dynamics metaphor here, which really helps. Imagine two physical vessels, like two large buckets of water.
Okay, two buckets.
One is completely full and one is completely empty. If you connect them at the bottom with a pipe and open a valve, what happens?
Well, gravity takes over. The water flows from the full bucket into the empty bucket until the water level in both buckets is exactly the same.
Right. They reach equilibrium automatically.
They find a common level without you needing to pump the water or do any work.
Exactly. According to the text, when you entangle the wave function of the problem, that's negative A, with the wave function of the solution positive A on the spiritual level, they behave the same way.
They equalize.
Yes. The problem is partially solved, pulling it up, and the solution is partially complicated, pulling it down, bringing them both to a common middle ground.
Let me stop you right there because I want to look closely at the math the author provides. I want to push back a little on how this actually manifests.
Sure, go ahead.
The author is very specific about the arithmetic. Before you do anything, you have the problem at negative A and the solution at positive A. If you add them together, F1 at negative A plus F2 at positive A, that equals 0.
Yes, the total quantum number of the system is 0.
And that total is conserved, right? The entanglement doesn't create magical new energy out of nowhere.
Correct. It simply redistributes the existing potential within a closed system.
Okay, so I perform one session of this Philosopher's Stone protocol. I entangled them. The math says they equalize halfway. So my problem goes from negative A to negative 1/2 A, and the solution drops from positive A to positive 1/2 A.
They meet in the middle.
And the total is still 0. But what you're telling me is that my problem has just been mathematically half solved.
That is the structural claim, yes. That is the outcome of a single session.
Wait, hold on. Let's ground this in reality.
Yeah.
You're telling me if I have $10,000 in crushing credit card debt, that's my negative A.
Okay, painful, but yes.
I sit in my living room, I assign it a negative math value, I link it to a positive solution, and boom, they equalize. My debt is now a negative $5,000 problem.
Mathematically, yes.
But how does that manifest in reality? Does a mysterious check just arrive in the mail? Does a hacker erase half my balance at the bank? Because that sounds like magical thinking, not physics.
I get that.
It sounds like The Secret, dressed up in lab coats.
That is a very valid critique, and it's important to clarify how the author bridges the gap between the spiritual math and the measurable reality.
Please do, because I'm stuck on the missing $5,000.
Yeah.
The equalization on the spiritual level does not conjure physical cash out of thin air to violate the laws of physics. Remember, the spiritual level is the realm of source causes.
Right.
By changing the underlying wave function of your debt problem, you alter how that function collapses into your daily life going forward.
Okay, so how does that look practically if the money doesn't just appear?
It alters probabilities. You might suddenly notice a secondary income stream you had ignored.
Like a freelance gig or something.
Yeah. Or you might find the psychological block that was causing you to compulsive shop has vanished, allowing you to actually stick to a budget.
Oh, I see.
Or perhaps an unexpected opportunity arises to refinance that debt at a fraction of the interest rate. The severity and the weight of the problem in your life is reduced by half.
So the physical world still obeys its rules, but the configuration of events shifts around me.
Exactly. It reshapes the landscape of probability.
Ah, okay. It doesn't break the rules of reality. It just optimizes my path through them. That actually makes more sense. But still, negative 1/2 A means I still have a problem. It's just smaller.
Which is why you don't stop after one session, you iterate.
Oh, you do it again.
Right. For the second session, your problem is now at its new value, negative 1/2 A. But here is the critical step. You do not use the depleted solution of positive 1/2 A from yesterday.
I need a new bucket.
Exactly. You go back to the source and grab a fresh, full-strength solution at positive A to entangle it with.
So I bring a brand new full bucket of water to entangle with my now half-empty bucket.
Correct. The sum of this new system is positive 1/2 A. When they equalize, they split that total.
Let me do the math. Half of a half. The problem becomes positive 1/4 A. Wait, no, negative 1/4 A.
They meet in the middle. The problem becomes positive 1/4 A, and the solution becomes positive 1/4 A.
Okay, yes. And you just keep iterating. Session 3 brings the problem down to negative 1/8 A. Session 4 brings it to negative 1/16.
It is a process of iterative dilution.
Mathematically, it's Zeno's paradox, right? You never technically hit an absolute zero purely through division.
Technically, no.
But practically speaking, after 5 or 6 sessions, the weight of the problem becomes so infinitesimally small that it ceases to impact your daily life.
Exactly. You are slowly diluting the problem through repeated exposure to its ideal solution.
Okay, but this raises a massive, waving red flag for me.
I think I know what it is.
Where exactly is this fresh, full-strength solution, this positive A coming from every single time?
Right.
If I am constantly entangling my empty bank account with a perfect wealth solution to pull my reality upward, whose wealth am I draining?
That is the big question.
Am I entangling my empty bank account with my neighbor's full bank account? And when the potentials equalize, my balance goes up because his goes down. Am I acting as a quantum vampire here, stealing someone else's good luck or health to fix my own life?
That is the most critical, ethical, and structural question you could ask. The author anticipates this entirely.
Oh, he does.
Yes, and he introduces a rigid, unbreakable rule for the entire system. The solution, the positive A, must never, under any circumstances, be drawn from a real existing person or situation on the measurable level.
Okay, so I can't use my neighbor's healthy spine to heal my herniated disc.
Absolutely not. If you did, you would be causing real, measurable harm. The equalization process would literally drain their physical well-being or their financial stability.
It would be an act of energetic theft.
Exactly. Instead, the author dictates that the solution must always exclusively be drawn from what esoteric traditions call the Akashic records.
The Akashic records. Now we're getting into some deep esoteric history.
We are.
For the listener who isn't familiar with, 19th century theosophy, what are we talking about here?
Historically, the Akashic records, which is a concept popularized by figures like Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, are conceived of as a cosmic library.
A library of what?
A non-physical compendium of all human events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future. It's viewed as the universe's hard drive.
Right.
But in the context of ezoPhysics, Christian Defer defines it very practically. It is the database of ideal state functions on the spiritual level.
The database of ideals, so it's not just a record of what has happened, it's a repository of perfect templates.
Yes.
It contains the archetype of perfect physical health, the archetype of perfect abundance, the blueprint for a flawless interpersonal relationship.
Exactly. And this solves your vampire dilemma beautifully.
Because no one owns it.
Right. When you draw the solution from the Akashic records, you are pulling from an abstract, unowned template. It doesn't belong to a human being. It doesn't have a physical counterpart on the measurable level that can suffer.
So when the equalization happens, and my real problem improves, the cost of that improvement is absorbed by an abstract concept.
Precisely. As the text explicitly puts it, when you reduce an ideal from the Akashic records, it neither warms you nor harms anyone else.
You are not trespassing on anyone's property.
No. There is no karmic debt accrued because there is no victim. The profit is entirely on the real side. The cost is entirely on the ideal side. And ideals, by definition, don't suffer.
And because it is an infinite spiritual database, the archive is inexhaustible.
Exactly. You can always pull a fresh, full-strength ideal for your next session without ever depleting the source.
That makes a lot of structural sense. It keeps the whole protocol clean.
It's very elegant.
But looking at this practically, doing 5, 6, or 7 highly focused mental sessions over a week to slowly have a problem down to nothing sounds incredibly tedious.
It does take patience.
It's effective, I'm sure, but it's slow. If I'm in pain today, I don't want to wait a week to dilute it to 1/64th of its strength. Is there a way to hack the math?
There is. And this takes us directly to the primary focus of our exploration today, the 3A method.
The 3A method.
Yes. The author explicitly calls it a trick. It is a mathematical bypass to skip the iterative sessions and achieve the full effect of the Philosopher's Stone in a single sitting.
Now we're talking. How do we manipulate the math to solve the problem instantly?
It requires a very clever adjustment of the initial conditions before you entangle.
Okay, what do I do?
In the standard method, you entangle your problem negative A with the standard ideal solution positive A. In the 3A method, instead of asking the Akashic records for the standard one-to-one solution, you deliberately formulate an intention for an exaggerated, multiplied ideal solution.
You asked for a state function with a value of plus 3A.
Exactly.
Okay, let me make sure I'm doing the arithmetic right here. Explain like I'm the 5 style.
Go for it.
Before entanglement, my problem brings a value of -1 or -A to the table.
Right.
The exaggerated solution brings a massive positive 3 plus 3A to the table. When I sum them together in the system, -A plus positive 3A equals a total energy of positive 2A.
Correct. The total quantum number of your system before they equalize is plus 2A. No, you perform the session. The entanglement causes the potentials to seek equilibrium. They must meet in the middle, meaning they have to share that total energy equally.
So they divide the total by 2. Half of positive 2A is positive A.
Yes.
When they equalize, my problem walks away with positive A, and the solution walks away with positive A. Both end up at exactly plus A.
Exactly. The problem has instantly shifted from negative A to positive A.
It has reached the exact value of its own perfect solution in a single session.
The deficit is completely gone, mathematically replaced by the desired state. You have skipped the half, quarter, and eighth steps entirely.
It's a brilliant mathematical hack. But I need to ground this again. I can't just stand in my living room and yell ×3 at the ceiling.
No, you can't.
What does it actually look like to ask for a 3A solution in real life?
The author provides a very clear physical example for this. Suppose your problem is chronic, specific pain in your right shoulder.
Okay, ouch.
Your problem negative A is the pain and restriction in that one specific joint. In the standard iterative method, you would ask the Akashic records for the positive A solution, a pain-free, normally functioning right shoulder.
Right. Just fix the broken part to baseline.
But if you want to use the 3A trick, you have to expand the scope of the solution geometrically.
How so?
You don't just ask for a healthy right shoulder. You formulate an intention for an optimally high form of mobility, strength, and vitality for your entire upper body.
Wow.
You ask for perfect function in your neck, both shoulders, your arms, and your upper back. You are asking for a state of physical freedom in that entire region that is functionally 3 times higher than merely removing the pain in one isolated joint.
You're pulling a much larger, more robust template from the records.
Exactly.
I love this concept, and to build on the financial analogy from earlier, it's like I have a credit card debt of $10,000. That's my negative A. The standard solution, positive A, is asking for exactly $10,000 to pay it off and bring my balance back to zero. But the 3A method is like asking the universe for a windfall of $1 million.
A massive surplus.
Right. The $10,000 debt gets wiped out instantly in the tidal wave of the larger solution, and I'm left with all this extra. It swallows the problem whole.
Yes, the problem is completely eclipsed by the magnitude of the solution.
But wait, as soon as you say that, human nature kicks in. This begs an obvious greedy question.
I know where this is going.
If I can ask for 3A and fix the shoulder instantly, why not ask for 100A? Why not ask for 1000A? If I have a sore shoulder, why not entangle it with the Akashic template for Superman?
Become entirely invincible.
Yeah. Never experience physical pain again. Why stop at a multiplier of 3?
It's the logical extreme of the math, definitely, but the author addresses this limitation very explicitly.
Oh, he does. What's the catch?
You have to remember what is managing these values and executing the entanglement process. It isn't your conscious, greedy mind doing the calculation.
Then what is?
It is your subconscious, which the author refers to systematically as the biocomputer.
The biocomputer, the interface between the physical body and the spiritual level.
Yes. The biocomputer manages the reality of these parameters, and the biocomputer is strictly grounded in the physical, biological constraints of your current human incarnation.
So it has limits.
It has a localized plausibility filter. If you try to entangle a sore shoulder with the template for Kryptonian invulnerability like 100A, the biocomputer will immediately reject it.
It won't accept an absurd, violently disconnected reality.
No. The discrepancy between your physical limits and the intention is just too vast. The system cannot maintain coherence, and the entanglement will simply fail.
So the biocomputer acts as a reality check.
Exactly. The biocomputer knows what is biologically optimal for you in this lifetime, and Superman is not on the menu.
It enforces the laws of physics on the measurable level, so your brain doesn't just shatter from the contradiction. That actually makes a lot of sense.
And this leads to a very practical role for the 3A method. It works best on very specific, tightly localized problems.
Like what?
A specific joint pain, a singular identifiable dispute with a coworker, a very clear, isolated decision you need to make about a contract. In those isolated cases, you can easily define a tripled solution that still makes logical sense to the biocomputer.
You just expand the radius of health or harmony slightly beyond the problem.
Exactly.
But if the problem is too big, the math breaks down.
Yes. If your problem is something sprawling, vague, and deeply entrenched like my entire life is a mess or I am chronically fundamentally unhappy with my career path, the 3A trick is almost guaranteed to fail.
Because you can't triple a vague problem.
Right. You cannot effectively triple a vague global existential crisis into a coherent Akashic template. The biocomputer won't know what to grasp.
So what do you do then?
For those sprawling, multifaceted life issues, the author advises sticking to the standard iterative sessions. You have to chip away at the mountain piece by piece. The 3A method is a sniper rifle for specific, well-defined targets.
That is a crucial distinction. The 3A method requires absolute precision. But honestly, this leads us to a much broader, more common issue.
What's that?
What if you don't have one specific, easily definable target? What if I don't have a targeted pain in my shoulder or a single argument at work?
Just a general malaise.
Yeah, exactly. What if I am just exhausted? What if I am carrying the heavy, vague, generalized baggage of simply living in the modern world?
A lot of people feel that way.
I feel overwhelmed. My reactions to small annoyances are disproportionate. I'm irritable. I can't sleep properly, and I can't even point to a single negative A to fix. The sniper rifle is completely useless if you're surrounded by a thick fog.
And that is exactly where the universal philosopher's stone, in its singular form, reaches its operational limit.
It's just not the right tool.
Right. If the stone is a scalpel, you need something entirely different to clean the entire operating room. And that is why the author introduces the second major tool in this manual, the cognitive prosthesis.
The cognitive prosthesis, the second major pillar of our deep dive. So, how does this differ structurally from the stone?
The fundamental difference lies in scope and application. The philosopher's stone is single parameter, One defined problem, one defined solution.
Right, the sniper rifle.
The cognitive prosthesis, on the other hand, relies on a concept called multitasking parameters. Instead of pulling one specific problem out of your life to fix, you are taking a whole suite of parameters related to your internal psychological state, and you are entangling all of them simultaneously with their optimal states.
So it is not an outward-facing problem solver.
No, it is an inward-facing, comprehensive cleaning mechanism.
It's designed to clean the psychological, emotional, and mental layers of a person all at once. Let's dig into why the author believes this is so desperately necessary. Why do we need a prosthesis for our cognition? Is human consciousness inherently broken?
To understand the need, we have to return to his concept of the biocomputer.
Okay, the interface.
Right. The author posits that throughout a human life, every single experience, every intense emotion, both the joyful ones and the traumatic ones, every profound feeling, and every repetitive thought pattern generates a kind of energetic residue.
Like exhaust from an engine.
Good analogy. It creates what esotericists call thought forms and emotional charges. Over time, this residue accumulates. It settles into the layers of the brain, the nervous system, and the physical organs.
Just building up.
Yes, it forms deep geological strata of emotional and mental sediment within the biocomputer.
So every time I get stressed in gridlock traffic, every time I have a beautiful moment watching a sunset, every time I lie awake ruminating on a foolish thing I said 5 years ago, I'm leaving a tiny, permanent deposit of sediment in my physical and energetic systems.
Yes, and the text is very careful to point out that this isn't inherently evil or wrong.
It's just a byproduct of living.
Exactly. This sediment is the raw material of human experience. It is literally how the soul is sculpted and defined during its physical incarnation.
The problem isn't that the sediment exists. The problem is the rate of its accumulation.
Precisely.
Historically speaking, how did human beings deal with this buildup before someone wrote a manual on ezoPhysics? We didn't just walk around bursting with emotional sediment in the 15th century, did we?
No, historically, humanity had two primary natural mechanisms for clearing this sediment.
What were they?
The first was healthy, deeply restorative sleep. During REM and deep sleep cycles, the organism, the brain, and the soul process the daily accumulation, catalog what is important, and flush out a significant portion of the superficial tension and residue.
Sleep was the nightly street sweeper. It came out when the city was quiet and washed the roads.
Beautifully put, yes. And the second mechanism, according to the author's specific cosmology, occurs after death.
Oh, wow. After death.
Yes. Any deep, compacted sediment that wasn't processed during physical life is cleansed in what he refers to as purgatory.
Purgatory.
Right. The soul is essentially pressure-washed clean of the accumulated, unresolved psychological and emotional baggage of the incarnation before it can move on to higher spiritual levels.
So sleep handles the daily maintenance, and purgatory handles the deep clean at the end of the lease.
Exactly.
That sounds like a perfectly functional closed-loop system. Why does the author argue it's broken now?
The core issue is the sheer unprecedented velocity of modern existence. The author argues that the pace of life over the last century has accelerated so drastically.
The relentless influx of digital information.
The constant low-level cortisol spikes from news cycles, the ceaseless demands of a globalized economy, the rate of sediment accumulation has violently outstripped our natural capacity to process it.
Sleep simply cannot keep up with the data overload of the 21st century.
Exactly.
The nightly street sweeper is trying to clean up after a daily hurricane. It's impossible. So the sediment just keeps building up day after day, year after year, never fully clearing out.
And when that buildup reaches a critical mass, the biocomputer becomes saturated.
What happens then?
The author states that people are increasingly reaching states of what he calls psychological catastrophe.
Like burnout.
Burnout, severe chronic anxiety, deep clinical depression, or a profound loss of meaning. And this happens not necessarily because of one massive identifiable trauma, but simply because the internal system is completely clogged with unprocessed emotional and mental strata.
The natural biological mechanisms have failed under the sheer load.
Yes.
Okay, to build on the analogy we used earlier about code and computers, if the Philosopher's Stone is a software patch to fix a specific bug in a program, the cognitive prosthesis is like clearing the cache, deleting the cookies, and defragging the hard drive on a sluggish, overloaded web browser.
That is exactly the dynamic.
Your computer isn't technically broken, but it's so full of temporary files, tracking scripts, and bloated memory that it takes 5 minutes just to open a new tab.
You have to force a cache clear to get the baseline operating system running smoothly again.
Right. And what's fascinating here is a very specific detail the text points out regarding what kind of data can clog the system. It isn't just negative emotions like fear, trauma, or anger.
No, the author explicitly notes that an excess of knowledge can also clog the biocomputer.
Wait, too much knowledge? How can knowing things be bad? I thought learning was the goal.
Well, the text suggests that ungrounded concepts, excessive intellectualization without practical application, and an endless accumulation of abstract mental models can saturate the mental layer of the biocomputer.
Oh, like just reading theories without doing anything real.
Exactly. The author points to the historical trope of great geniuses or eccentric professors who, over time, degenerated into total oddballs unable to tie their own shoes.
The absent-minded professor.
Right. Their brilliance led to such a massive accumulation of complex mental sediment that it warped their basic functioning. Their biocomputer was overloaded with the data it couldn't physically integrate.
So the cognitive prosthesis protects against this specific type of intellectual clogging as well.
Yes, it flushes out the unintegrated data.
That is wild. You can literally think yourself into a system crash by opening too many intellectual tabs. So the cognitive prosthesis isn't just for healing trauma. It's basic maintenance to keep the machinery of the mind running cleanly, regardless of whether you're filling it with anxiety or advanced calculus.
Exactly.
Okay, so knowing that our internal cache is full is one thing. Recognizing that we're sluggish, reactive, and irritable because we have too many mental tabs open is a great diagnosis.
Yeah.
But how exactly does one perform this cache clear in daily life? If my mental browser is bogged down with 50 open tabs of stress and overthinking, walk me through what I actually do when I go home tonight.
The author doesn't leave this as an abstract concept. He provides a meticulous, step-by-step physical protocol. He specifically embeds this within a recommended 21-day program to establish the neural and spiritual habit.
Okay, let's walk through a hypothetical scenario. It's Tuesday night, you're exhausted, your mind is racing,
Yeah.
and you decide to do the protocol.
Right, so step one, you sit or lie down in a quiet place where you won't be interrupted.
Makes sense.
You must begin by establishing what the author calls coherence. You silently, internally declare the intention to bring the field of your heart into coherence with the field of your mind.
So I'm deliberately aligning my emotional center with my intellectual center. I'm focusing my intent, telling my body we're about to do something deliberate.
Yes. Step two involves building the problem function, F1. In the prosthesis, you actually use your physical body, specifically your thumbs, as anchors for the quantum functions.
My thumbs. Really?
Yes. You declare by the power of your free will that you are linking F1, the current state, the minus, the clogged state, to the thumb of your right hand.
My right thumb is now F1, the current messy reality.
Then you define the multitasking parameters you want to clear. You might mentally declare, my psychological resilience, my emotional strength, my capacity for deep relaxation, and my overall mental health are at their current level.
I am assigning the actual, present, sediment-filled state of those parameters to my right thumb.
Yes, and you don't have to measure how bad they are consciously. Your biocomputer already knows exactly how much sediment is in there.
Okay, so my right thumb now represents the sluggish, overloaded state of my mind. What's step three?
Step three is building the solution function, F2. You declare that you are linking F2, the ideal state, the plus to the thumb of your left hand.
The left thumb.
You then pull the perfect ideal templates from the Akashic records. You declare, my psychological resilience, my emotional strength, my capacity for relaxation, and my mental health are at an optimally high level.
So left thumb is F2, the perfectly clean, optimized, factory reset state of my mind.
Right. Step four is the core action. By the power of your conscious free will, you declare that you are quantum entangling F1, the right thumb, with F2, the left thumb.
I'm bringing them together.
And crucially, you mentally place this entanglement into the field of your heart.
Wait, why the heart? If we're clearing mental cache and dealing with the biocomputer, why not focus the entanglement in the brain?
The text insists that the field of the heart is where maximum coherence is maintained in the human system. It acts as an energetic incubator.
So the brain is too unstable.
If you hold the entanglement purely in the intellect, the ego gets involved. You start analyzing it, and it might decohere or collapse back into the measurable level too quickly before the deep equalization on the spiritual level is complete. The heart holds the wave functions steady and safe while they equalize.
Okay, so I've assigned the thumbs, I've entangled them, I'm holding the focus in my heart. F1 and F2 are seeking equilibrium. Now what? Do I chant, Do I visualize glowing white lights washing over my brain?
You do absolutely nothing but wait and observe.
Just wait.
This is where the physical, bodily experience of ezoPhysics becomes very tangible. You hold the focus and simply wait for your organism, your biocomputer, to send you a physical receipt that the equalization process has occurred.
A receipt. What does a quantum receipt feel like in the human body?
The author details very specific involuntary physical markers. You are not waiting for a vague, subjective sense of peace. You are waiting for an involuntary bodily reaction.
Like what?
A sudden, deep yawn that you can't suppress. A localized muscle spasm. A wave of chills or a distinct involuntary shiver running down your spine.
The body physically reacts to the shifting of potential on the spiritual level.
Exactly.
Let's ground this again. Is this just a highly structured, quantum-flavored placebo protocol? Because in psychology, specifically in somatic experiencing therapies, physical releases like yawning or shivering are well-documented signs that the parasympathetic nervous system is taking over.
That's true.
It's the body discharging trapped fight-or-flight energy.
The author would likely argue that somatic experiencing is simply measuring the measurable level effect of a spiritual level equalization.
Ah, right. Looking at the thermometer.
Exactly. Whether you view it through the lens of quantum wave functions or neurobiology and the vagus nerve, the physical result is the same. The body is violently releasing tension.
How long does it take to get that receipt? Like, am I sitting there all night?
It varies wildly based on how clogged your system is. The text notes that for beginners, say, day 1 of the 21-day protocol, it might take 10, 20, or even up to 60 solid minutes of waiting in absolute stillness for that physical sign to finally arrive.
Wow. An hour of just sitting and holding an intention. That requires serious discipline. Most people can't sit without checking their phone for 5 minutes.
It is not easy, especially at first.
And what is happening during that hour? Is it just quiet, peaceful waiting?
Not always. And here the author provides a very important stark warning about the emotional release.
Oh boy.
While you are waiting for the physical sign, the equalization process is actively peeling away the compacted strata of sediment. As those layers of old negative emotions and thought forms are loosened and flushed out of the system, you may experience them vividly in your conscious mind.
What do you mean vividly?
You might be sitting there trying to relax, and suddenly you feel a wave of old, intense grief, inexplicable anger, or sharp, terrifying anxiety.
That sounds miserable. If I'm trying to clear my cache and suddenly I'm hit with a wave of ancient panic from a breakup 5 years ago, what do I do?
The advice is explicit and vital. Observe them. Do not engage with them. You do not analyze where the emotion came from. You do not try to suppress it or fight it.
So no intellectualizing.
No, you do not follow the thought down the rabbit hole of why am I feeling this. You simply allow the emotion to pass through your awareness like a wave crashing on a beach. It is literally the debris leaving the system.
Because if I engage with it,
If you engage with it intellectually, you risk re-anchoring it back into the biocomputer. Just watch it leave.
it's like watching dirty brown water flush out of a pipe. You don't jump into the water and try to examine the dirt to figure out where it came from. You just let it flow into the drain until it runs clear.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so eventually I get the shiver, I get the deep yawn, the receipt has arrived. Am I done? Can I get up and go make dinner?
No, you must close the session properly, and this involves strict BHP. It's the author's Polish abbreviation for health and safety protocols. The process has loosened and released energetic debris. If you simply stand up and walk away, that negative energy remains lingering in your personal field.
And that's bad.
It can reattach, causing severe irritability, heavy fatigue, or headaches. You must perform a physical closure to dump it.
How do I do that?
You must physically ground the energy. The author prescribes a specific action to anchor the mental command. You declare, by the power of my free will, I ground all released negative energies. Then you physically shake your hands vigorously toward a radiator, a metal water pipe, or the literal ground something physically connected to the earth.
Like literally shaking water or static electricity off my hands.
Yes. And finally, you clap your hands together once, loudly and firmly, while declaring that you are causing the decoherence of the entanglement. The loud clap physically and mentally breaks the quantum link.
So the session is officially over. Your cache is cleared.
Yeah.
Okay. That is an incredibly intense, highly structured process.
Yeah.
It's a literal step-by-step protocol. Sit, cohere, assign the right thumb, assign the left thumb, entangle in the heart, sit through the emotional flush, wait for the physical shiver, shake the energy off into a radiator, clap to close.
It is a full regimen.
It sounds like a serious mental workout, which makes me wonder, if this clears the cache and makes me feel amazing and lightweight, shouldn't I be doing this all the time?
Well,
I mean, if my boss yells at me at 10 a.m., can I just duck into the bathroom, do the cognitive prosthesis, and reset? Can I do this 10 times a day?
the author strongly cautions against overusing the tool. The biocomputer is tied to a physical, biological system, and clearing this deeply entrenched sediment is an active, demanding process. It requires energy.
Oh, so it taxes the body.
Right. The text places strict limits on frequency, a maximum of 1 or 2 sessions a day. Doing it more often is entirely counterproductive. It exhausts the nervous system.
That makes sense.
He compares it to brushing your teeth. It is a daily or perhaps weekly hygiene practice. You don't brush your teeth 10 times a day. If you did, you'd destroy the enamel. You brush them once or twice a day to maintain baseline health. The prosthesis is mental hygiene.
And speaking of hygiene and building a lasting habit, the text emphasizes another crucial element of this daily practice, especially during the 21-day onboarding phase.
Yes, the journal.
The journal. The author seems absolutely obsessive about keeping a written record. Why is that so important? If the quantum mechanics are working on the spiritual level, why do I need a spiral notebook on the measurable level? Why can't I just do the practice and enjoy the results?
The author insists that the journal is not mere bureaucracy or busy work. It acts as the vital interface between your conscious intellectual mind and your subconscious biocomputer.
Oh, it's a communication tool.
Exactly. Every single time you record a session, you are signaling to your biocomputer that this process is important, that it is real, and that it is being monitored.
What exactly am I supposed to be writing down in this ledger?
After every single session, you must record the date, the specific parameters you use for F1 and F2, the exact amount of time in minutes it took to receive the physical sign, the receipt, the specific emotions or physical sensations that surfaced during the waiting period, and crucially, and up the following day, about the actual effect it had on your well-being.
Like, did you sleep better? Were you less reactive to your spouse?
Yes, tracking the tangible outcomes.
That is a lot of meticulous data tracking. What's the payoff for all that bookkeeping?
There are 2 massive benefits. First, it prevents the human tendency towards self-delusion. When you track the data objectively, you can see the undeniable patterns of improvement over weeks, rather than relying on your notoriously fickle, skeptical memory.
You generate your own proof that the practice is working.
Yes. Second, and much more profoundly, the act of journaling actually optimizes the physical process. The text notes that practitioners who diligently journal find that the time it takes to get the physical feedback shortens dramatically. That hypothetical day 1 session that took 60 torturous minutes of waiting, by day 14, if you've been journaling, it might only take 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
The biocomputer learns to recognize the protocol. It executes the cache clear faster, precisely because the journaling has built a robust, communicative neural pathway between the conscious intent and the subconscious execution.
So by writing it down, I'm basically training my biocomputer to be more efficient at running the new software. It optimizes the code.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating concept. And it elegantly bridges the esoteric spiritual practice with very grounded empirical self-tracking. But as powerful as this all sounds, clearing the mental cache, solving problems instantly with the 3A trick, the author places some very, very strict guardrails around who should use these tools and when.
Very strict.
He does not present this as a harmless toy. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most important aspect of the text: boundaries, ethics, and what he calls the Homo sapiens quantum.
Yes. The author is absolutely not presenting this as a magic wand without consequences or limitations. There are hard, non-negotiable lines drawn in the text.
Let's start with the absolute medical do-nots. What are the situations where the author explicitly forbids using the Philosopher's Stone or the cognitive prosthesis?
First and foremost, the text is adamant. These quantum tools do not replace psychotherapy, psychiatric care, or acute medical treatment.
So it's not a substitute for a doctor.
No. If a person is experiencing an acute psychiatric crisis, severe clinical depression, intense panic attacks, loss of contact with reality, or suicidal ideation, they must immediately seek professional, conventional medical help.
Because their system is already overloaded.
Right. The QMT tools are designed for maintenance, daily hygiene, and resolving manageable life blockages. They are not triage tools for acute mental health emergencies. Using them during a crisis could destabilize a fragile system further.
That is an incredibly responsible and necessary boundary for any esoteric text to draw. What else? Are there physical states where you simply shouldn't attempt to practice?
Yes. You must never practice under the influence of alcohol or any psychoactive drugs.
Why not?
These substances fundamentally disrupt the neurological and energetic coherence required for the entanglement to hold stable on the spiritual level. The process will either fail entirely or, worse, entangle chaotic, fragmented data into your biocomputer.
That sounds bad.
It is. Furthermore, you should not practice when you are deeply physically exhausted. The process requires the active exertion of free will, which requires intense mental focus. If you are nodding off to sleep during the setup, the intent is too weak to create a stable entanglement.
Okay, so no practicing while intoxicated, exhausted, or in the middle of a severe mental health crisis. That all makes logical, practical sense. But there is also a profound structural ethical boundary laid out in the text, and it revolves around the concept of free will.
Yes, this is huge in his system.
We touched on this earlier regarding the Akashic Records, but it deserves a much deeper dive. The author claims free will isn't just a philosophical concept or a moral idea. He claims it's a literal physical force.
Indeed. In the author's corrected version of the Schrödinger equation, free will is represented by a specific mathematical operator, denoted as delta WW2. He argues that free will is an elementary force of the universe, just like electromagnetism, gravity, or the strong nuclear force.
So it's a measurable thing.
It is a force capable of genuinely physically perturbing quantum systems. It is the engine that actually makes the QMT work.
Because it's a real measurable force in his physics, its misuse has real structural consequences.
Exactly. And the cardinal, unbreakable ethical rule of ezoPhysics is that you cannot violate the free will of another ensouled being. You cannot use the cognitive prosthesis on someone else without their explicit conscious consent.
So no sneaking up on someone quantumly.
You cannot entangle your problem with a real person's solution. You cannot attempt to alter someone else's state function.
What happens if I try? What if I decide I know what's best for my stubborn friend, and I secretly use the prosthesis to try and fix their anxiety without telling them? Or what if I use the stone maliciously to manipulate someone into giving me a job?
The author's cosmology addresses this violation with a concept called ontological mass.
Ontological mass.
Yes. When you violate the ethical structure of reality, when you sin, to use the theological term the text occasionally employs to bridge the gap, your soul accrues ontological mass. Normally, a healthy soul is relatively massless, allowing it to exist freely and fluidly on the spiritual level.
But if you misbehave,
But if you accrue too much ontological mass through unethical actions or violations of free will, your soul literally becomes heavy.
and if we tie this back to the map of reality from the very beginning, mass is the defining characteristic of the measurable level. Mass is what causes a wave function to collapse into solid physical reality.
Precisely. If a soul crosses a negative moral threshold and accrues too much ontological mass, it becomes so heavy that it loses its ability to ascend to the spiritual level after death. It becomes trapped, continuously collapsing back onto the dense, restrictive, measurable level.
Wow, trapped in matter.
The author uses the structural physics equation to explain historical legends of earthbound spirits, ghosts, or beings trapped in a state of decay. The ethical boundary is not a polite suggestion. It is structural physics in this system. Violating free will literally anchors you to the physical plane in the worst possible way.
That is a genuinely terrifying physics equation. Do evil, gain mass, get trapped by gravity. It certainly incentivizes playing strictly by the rules. It means these tools are exclusively for self-regulation, self-healing, and problem-solving within the strict bounds of your own life and your own interactions.
Which brings us to the ultimate grand vision of the text.
And what's that?
If an individual masters these tools ethically, if they use the Philosopher's Stone to solve their daily problems by referencing ideal templates, and they use the cognitive prosthesis diligently to keep their biocomputer clean of sediment, they undergo an evolutionary shift.
Like, as a species.
The author believes that by combining these quantum mental tools, QMT, with our rapidly advancing quantum technical tools like AI and advanced computing, humanity is poised for a massive evolutionary leap.
A leap from Homo sapiens.
To Homo sapiens quantum, a completely new species, defined not by biological mutation, but by a leap in consciousness. A species that no longer merely reacts blindly to the collapsed effects of the measurable level, but one that consciously, deliberately, and ethically administers its own quantum state from the spiritual level.
A species that doesn't just put ice packs on thermometers, but actually cures the infection. That is a staggering, sweeping vision of human potential.
It really is.
And it brings us back to you, the listener. We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We've mapped out two interpenetrating levels of reality, explored the mechanics of quantum entanglement used to have a problem, discovered the mathematical bypass of the 3A shortcut, and learned the precise bodily protocol for clearing our mental cache with the cognitive prosthesis.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But whether you view Christian Defer's manual as a literal, actionable physics textbook outlining the literal mechanics of the universe, or whether you see it as a profoundly detailed, incredibly rich psychological metaphor for somatic therapy and intentional living,
Yeah.
the core concepts offer a completely different, radically proactive way to interact with your life.
Absolutely.
The idea of intentionally clearing your cache instead of just passively carrying the crushing weight of years of emotional sediment. The idea of treating your daily problems not as permanent, concrete fixtures that you are a victim to, but as math errors, imbalances that can be equalized with an ideal state. It is an incredibly empowering framework.
You're taking control.
Right. It suggests that you are not just a passenger trapped in the backseat of the physical world. You have access to the control room. You just have to learn how to write the code.
It demands an active, disciplined, and highly ethical engagement with one's own internal state. It is the exact opposite of a passive existence.
It truly is. And as we wrap up this exceptionally deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on the architecture we've explored, but looks outward at the world we are all living in right now.
I'm intrigued.
Well, if the author is correct, and human intention and free will are truly elementary forces capable of perturbing quantum systems, if our focus and our deep emotions can literally shift reality on a spiritual level, then what exactly happens when millions of people are simultaneously doom-scrolling on their phones?
Oh, wow.
Right? What happens when millions of us are feeding our collective fear, anger, and anxiety into the exact same global events at the exact same time?
That's a massive amount of uncoordinated energy.
Exactly. Are we all, without realizing it, acting as uncoordinated, chaotic ezophysicists? Are we unconsciously creating massive parasitic thought forms and terrifyingly bad quantum entanglements every single day with our collective attention?
If the model holds true, then yes, we absolutely are.
And more importantly, now that you know the theory behind how to shake off that negative energy, now that you know there might be a physical protocol-driven way to clear your cache and decohere from that collective panic, how will you protect your own biocomputer tomorrow morning?
It's a powerful question to ask yourself.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly mind-bending deep dive. Keep questioning the map and stay curious.